الله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه وبعد. This evening we're still looking at some of the frequently asked questions in Ramadan. We covered a few yesterday which basically dealt with some of the ahkam or some rulings pertaining to the fast. This evening, a mixture of some rulings and some other matters that have come up. The first one is the issue of az-zakah. And that is, when in Ramadan do I need to pay the zakah? Here a lot of people have confusion. There is a difference between zakatul mal and zakatul fitr. These are two completely separate things. Zakatul fitr is what is due upon the Muslim at the end of the month of fasting. So at the end of Ramadan, every Muslim must pay zakatul fitr. And as we will discuss at a later date, that this is given in the form of food to those who are needy. And that is for everyone, and it's given at the end of the month. Either on the first day of Shawwal before Salat al-Eid, or you can give it 1 or 2 days before the end of Ramadan. That is zakatul fitr. And people confuse that with zakatul mal, the zakah which a person owes on his or her property and wealth. Zakatul mal is not necessarily due in the month of Ramadan. This is a misconception that we have to pay zakah in Ramadan. One potentially could pay the zakah during any one of the months in our Islamic lunar calendar. A person may not have money in Ramadan, and they ended up having money only in the month of Dhul Qa'dah, for example. They had what you call the nisab. These are all technical terms. And it lasted that person, or stayed with that person to the following year, one whole year, to Dhul Qa'dah. So that person's time for paying zakah will be in the month of Dhul Qa'dah every year. So don't confuse the two. Zakatul mal is not necessarily due in the month of Ramadan. It could be different for each and every individual. That's the first issue. Now we want to come back to some of the ahkam of fasting. One of the things that are being asked is about rinsing the mouth. If I want to rinse my mouth during the daytime of Ramadan, then am I allowed to do so? The answer is yes. But you have to be careful that you don't exaggerate and gargle so that the water goes down your throat. If you rinse your mouth and then you spit out whatever you took in, that's fine. We know that a little bit of water will remain, but that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. The idea is you're allowed to rinse your mouth. If you can do wudu, then of course you're allowed to rinse your mouth. Dental work. There are different types of dental work. If you have a tooth pulled, if you have some of the dental work done, for the most part that does not nullify your fast, because you're not swallowing anything. If you are getting any dental work done, then you have to be careful of this. When you are rinsing your mouth, when things are carrying on, that nothing goes down your throat. That is why it's better to avoid doing it in Ramadan. But if you have no choice, then there is no problem with that, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. A few questions coming from the women. The first one, and it's quite common, is that a woman says, I'm breastfeeding or I'm pregnant, so I don't have to fast. This is not correct. Just because a woman is breastfeeding, it does not mean that she doesn't have to fast. Or just because she is pregnant, it doesn't mean that she's not to fast. Rather, al-asl, the basic principle is that she has to observe the fast in Ramadan, but if due to medical reasons, if she were to fast while breastfeeding, the child would be harmed because she would have less milk or not sufficient milk, or that she would become so weak that she could not continue the fast. Then she has an excuse to break the fast. In that case, she would break the fast and she would make them up at a later date, and there's no penalty for her to pay. The same thing for a pregnant woman. Just because she is pregnant, it's not an excuse that I'm not going to fast. No. She should attempt to fast. If she's capable of doing so, then it is compulsory for her to fast. But if for genuine medical reasons she is not able to keep the fast while she's pregnant, then she breaks the fast and then she can make it up at a later date. Again, there's no penalty for her to pay on that. Another issue is that somebody says, well, my doctor told me I shouldn't fast. Listen, the doctors for the most part that you're dealing with here are not Muslims. You don't just simply take the opinion. I will tell you, 95% of the cases that come to me where the person says, my doctor said I shouldn't fast. When we investigate it further, there's no basis for them not to fast. As a matter of fact, they can actually fast. We know it's going to make you a little bit weak and so on. Medications can be adjusted. Most of them, it's possible to do so. Therefore, the ulama from times of old, I'm speaking about hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years ago, they always spoke of a person who was not going to observe the fast due to some medical condition, then they said it should be based on the opinion of a trustworthy Muslim doctor. And when we talk about a Muslim doctor here, and trustworthy, it means one who prays 5 times a day. Other than that, they don't fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So how can you take their opinion? If they don't believe in the salah to the extent that they should, do you think they're going to give you an honest opinion about the fasting? We have to be extremely cautious of this. So just because the doctor says, no, I don't think you should fast, well, they don't know what the meaning of a siyam is. They don't know what type of an obligation it is, that it is one of the pillars of Islam, and so on and so forth. Okay? So if a doctor was to say that, then let's take it to a trustworthy, reliable Muslim doctor to investigate further, and then we can determine whether really the person should be breaking the fast or not. The last issue for this evening, inshallah ta'ala, is with regards to women as well, who are having their menstrual cycle, or that they are having postnatal bleeding. For them, it is haram to fast. There is no fast for them at all. So if the woman is menstruating, or she's experiencing postnatal bleeding, then there is no fast for her. She eats during the day. It's a normal day for her, and she makes up those days at a later time. A lot of questions about the hayd or the menstruation. What if the woman started fasting, and then just before Maghrib, by 10 minutes, by 20 minutes, by a few minutes before Maghrib, she started menstruating? What happens in that case? In that case, this is what Allah Azza wa Jalla has written for you. So that day of yours went. It doesn't count as you having fasted that day in Ramadan. You will simply make it up on another day after the month of Ramadan. Alright? If she was menstruating and then her menstruation stopped in the middle of the day, what does she do? She continues the rest of the day eating and drinking and so on and so forth, because that day it was too late for her to begin the fast. And she will fast another day, she'll make up that day at a later day. It is relatively simple. So, inshallah ta'ala, we just wanted to touch on a few of these frequently asked questions this evening, and we will do a few more bi'idhnillahi ta'ala tomorrow. هذا والله أعلم. وصلى الله وسلم على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه.